All right, welcome into another edition of Get Real with Ben Bleicher, a professional realty group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, ambassador real estate. Ben, good to see you again.
Hey,
Thanks for being
everybody.
here. I, of course, am Jake Sorensen, your host alongside Ben as we do this. Once a week, we talk about real estate, things happening in our market, outside the market, all the different things you want to know about in terms of trends happening in the year to come. That's what Ben is here for. He's the man. He knows a lot of stuff. You're a very wise man, Ben.
Know too much.
You know too much. By the way, off the bat, again, the website, prg-ne.com. The number to call for Ben and his squad, 402 Homes for You. 402 Homes for You with Ben Bleicher's squad at Professional Realty Group. Ben, we're getting close to, we're past Thanksgiving. Christmas is coming up here. People are getting ready for the holidays, and I'm sure you are as well. But in general, as we head into the new year, again, we have 1 month left in 2023, heading to 2024. And there's been some people, we kind of mentioned, people kind of sitting on their hands in terms of not sure what to do with their properties they want to buy or sell. As we head into the upcoming year for 2024, what are you seeing right now as a current trend for what's to come in the new year?
The current trend is what it is every year, and we're going to talk about it on this episode quite a bit, is we have a lot of people that say, I want to wait till spring to buy or sell every year. And there's certainly benefits to waiting, but I don't know that they outweigh the benefits to just doing it right now. And we obviously understand that people have holidays and a lot of obligations. So some people just can't. But we can talk about why people should be buying right now and why people definitely should be selling right now if there's a need. No one's ever going to be convinced to sell if they don't want to sell, if they don't need to sell. You'll never talk anybody out of their house, and we don't even try to. But it's definitely important to understand the pros and the cons of this time of year. And I don't know that there are a lot of cons that are created by the actual process of selling other than the inconvenience of having people in your house around Thanksgiving or Christmas, which we don't want, right? At least most of us don't. It's very inconvenient. But there's definitely a lot of pros just depending on each person's situation. So I don't know where you want to dive into that.
Well, let's go there because I think let's go to the whole myth of the spring is the best time to buy. Maybe it is the best time to buy, but in terms of people who have thought for a long time, you don't sell your home, you don't buy a home in November, December, January, February. What is the biggest reason you think that is a myth, or that should be busted as a myth in home buying and home selling?
Well, again, convenience-wise, it definitely is not the best time. The weather is not great. But as far as leverage, let's talk about why people should buy this time of year first. Then we'll dig into why sellers should sell. From a buying perspective, it's slower this time of year. So generally, you can look a little bit more casually. You don't have to be in as big of a hurry because that's not fun. The last 3 years of multiple offers and insanity has not been fun for me, hasn't been fun for my team or our buyers who we've helped buy. It's been chaos. Now that we're sort of back to a normal market, it's nice to have this time of year because you literally can take your time and focus on making sure you have the right house. And then with it being a little bit slower, you actually can generally manipulate the situation to where we get inspections. A lot of times with it being slower, we can get people to give us concessions like closing money, repairs after inspections, things like that. Whereas in the springtime when things are hotter and the temperature's much warmer, not just outside, but just in the market as a whole, you don't always get those things. And so people will also, we can switch over to sellers for a sec.
Yep.
People will say, well, why would I want to sell if that's the case? Well, the nice thing about this time of year is generally we don't have tire kickers. If you're looking for houses anywhere near Christmas or between Thanksgiving and Christmas, I feel like you are a much more serious buyer. And I don't just feel that way. I mean, we experience this. People that are looking right now generally are more serious. So while there may be less of them, the quality of the buyer is better. And we do. We have a lot of people that are moving because they have to. They're, relocating from out of
Yeah.
state or further away in Nebraska. They don't have the convenience of waiting till springtime. Now, those same people exist in the spring, but it's just much more chaotic. So from a seller perspective, let's go back to buyers again. You know, we just went through such a terrible period for 3 years for buyers where it didn't matter if you were buying $100,000 house or $1 million house. I mean, we had literally million plus houses getting multiple offers. I sold one in Cortland for some friends of mine. I think we listed it 1.35 million, and we sold it in 1 day cash. Cash. That's what it was like for a few years.
Fun times.
We only had one buyer, but it still sold in 1 day. That's how hectic it was. We had a few like that, and then we'd have anything that was from probably 150 to potentially even over $500,000 in that range. That it didn't matter if it was a dog or if it was the best one on the block. We'd have 5+ offers on it. So buyers should appreciate that that's gone, but even more so now with it being cold and now that Husker football season is finally over, and we don't have that affecting Sundays, the mood on Sundays at least. Things are much more pleasant.
I want to go back to something you said there, and I think it's crazy, but rewind to 2020, 2021, when, again, houses were just flying off the market for incredible prices. I mean, like you said, 1 day, and it was gone. But you mentioned that there's a time where like inspections weren't even happening because people didn't care. Like they wanted the property. There was a lot of people competing for it. It was oftentimes sold way above what it was on market for because people just wanted the house. Like when you look back at that into what it is now, where inspections are happening again, like what was your process in terms of even selling a home without even having the inspection go as you would typically want it to be?
A lot more liability just fell on us as realtors, and everybody who works for me goes through like rigorous training to learn how to look at these houses, and the things that are important to know whether we don't have X-ray vision, either do the inspectors though. So we had to go into this with a little bit different mindset, and we found ourselves telling buyers a lot of times just not to buy certain houses at all because we didn't have that level of surety to say, hey, this one's safe to buy without an inspection. So it put the burden on the realtor a lot more. And we'd have to sometimes sneak inspections, not sneak them in. We'd have to find alternative methods to get certain things looked at, like roofs. Roof is one of the most expensive things to have replaced on a house, but it's one of the easiest things to have done via insurance. So a lot of times we would call our insurance company and say, hey, we don't want you to insure this house without an inspection. And it would force them to let us have that inspection. At minimum, at least to have an adjuster go look at it, make sure there's not hail damage. And if there was, we could leverage that to get a new roof for them because we could say, well, we're going to walk if you don't do this. And guess what? Then they have to disclose that to the next buyer, even if it's not us. But not having inspections was rough. The most important things that I look at are the things that don't add value to a house. They add value, but not monetary value. Roofs, windows, HVAC, and foundations. If you have issues with any of those things, they certainly detract from the value. But if they're what I would call mediocre or great, meaning they're not failing, but they're okay or in great shape, they're worth the same value. It doesn't really make a difference whether they're brand new or 5 to 10 years old. So we would look really closely at those items because if those needed to be replaced, it'd be a red flag, and we need to account for that in our offer, how high we're willing to go over whatever they had it listed at, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just put, like I said, a lot more burden on us, and we really had to look a lot closer, knowing that we weren't going to get our inspector, who's very good at looking at that stuff, in there. We had to do some investigation of our own.
Well, I think about also the term obviously in the car buying world is you don't want to buy a lemon in terms of a bad car. Maybe it's a great deal, but there's something wrong with it. In housing, it's a very similar thing. You mentioned the pillars there of what's important for inspections and whether or not if it's a good property or bad property. So I'm curious, when someone wants to list with you, like how closely do you look at that before you accept the listing as your own?
Very, absolutely. Um, I would never evaluate a house or accept a listing sight unseen. I can't. It's
Does that exist out there? People, does that exist?
no, not very
Okay.
often. I mean, we do have people that will call and say, "I know that I want to list, and I want to be on by next week,"
Okay.
and they call me on a Friday and they want it on like Tuesday. Um, and I won't. First up, I won't sight unseen. I would never. It wouldn't be professional of me to do so, anyways. But yeah, when we go to houses, we are looking at the condition of these things. We're asking them how long has it been since the roof was replaced. I can easily look up whether there's been a hailstorm in between when they had it done last and now. And we do identify issues that people should take care of, but that's in any market. Like, we're going to go to a house and say, okay, here's what you need to do to prep for sale. And it's never just walking into it and saying that this is perfect. And I have clients that have great houses, so don't take that the wrong way, but something always needs moved, or there might be, the family that has tons of family photos up. We sometimes will say, depersonalize the house a little bit, take those down, and then fill the nail holes and repaint while you're ready. There's always something minor, even if it's like a 1-year-old house, there's always something that needs done. But we do look at those big items. I have a client right now whose house is for sale, and we're still on the market. We even had him replace some windows. It's just little things, and we didn't have to do those things as much the last 3 years. But now that things have settled down, it's important, because a first-time buyer does not want to walk into a house knowing that it's got a bunch of issues. And if we can identify those right away, especially, I mean, you want to dive into this, think of like first impressions. When you first walk up to a house, you judge it immediately. I don't care who you are. Like, you don't even have to walk inside.
You do judge a book by its cover, right?
You absolutely do. And then even furthermore, when they open the front door, first thing they see, like, that totally matters.
First impression matters.
Well, first, and I would say second impression. Exterior matters, curb appeal matters. Can you see ripped screens on the outside? Can you see, mulch that needs topped off? I mean, seems like stupid little dinky stuff, but people care about that. And even more so right now. But anyway, so we assess all that. We generally make recommendations. I've even had clients I've worked with who are friends or not friends, who I saw something that I thought was in dire need of improvement. For instance, I had a client that had one of those like walk-in bathtubs. You ever seen those?
I have seen that before.
It's generally for people that are disabled or maybe have an injury, where they can take a bath sitting up, and you just and it usually replaces a shower. Whereas you or I don't want to use a shower like that. That's nothing wrong with it. It's just, I just want a regular shower I can walk in and take a shower. I had a house a few years ago that had one of those in it, and the gal couldn't afford to do anything. It was her dad's house. We were selling it for the estate. And I actually ended up putting my own money up to have it done. And we've done this a bunch of times. I literally gave the lady basically $5,000, and I wrote into the contract saying she'd pay me back when we sold. And that was her only obligation, was that obviously she could never fire me from selling it for her. And I did sell it for a good price. But that she had to pay me back that money. And it worked out well. I didn't charge her any interest. I charged her my fee, and I made sure she paid me back the exact money that it cost me to do it. But we do that often. Because I knew that it would cost her an additional $20,000 because that was not there. I knew it was a $5,000 job, and that's what it cost. But the consumer would have been like, I can't even move into this house because it doesn't have a usable shower for me, which is not entirely true, but we need to cater to that mindset. Like, people want things to be perfect, doesn't matter what their price point, low or high, they have very high expectations generally.
There are 4 words, Ben. By the way, this is, again, Get Real with Ben Bleicher. He's a professional realty group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Ambassador Real Estate. You can call him at 402-HOMES for you, or visit prg-ne.com. There's 4 words I think that, I'm going to assume, you can, if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, that probably make real estate agents cringe, and it's for sale by owner when it comes to selling a property. Now, I've seen in my own area. I'm over by Lincoln East High School. There's once in a while there's for sale by owner listed on in a yard for a house, and obviously it's a way for somebody to try to eliminate the cost of a realtor. But for those people that do that, yes, there is a cost to selling with a real estate agent like yourself. But why is it not worth the hassle of doing it by yourself versus having a real estate agent like yourself or somebody across town to be involved in that whole process?
Well, I mean, we will always deal with for sale by owners. They'll always be out there, and we don't necessarily fault them. We talk to them a lot. They get harassed a lot.
Really
they have a huge target because every realtor in town who's not busy, who are they calling? I mean, it's the low-hanging fruit. So they're constantly getting solicited, which is extremely annoying. And I can look up anybody's phone number, anything I want in 30 seconds. I have a system for looking Jake up. I could know everywhere he's lived for the last 20 years, literally.
That's scary.
Rented or owned. I can see his criminal history. I can get his phone number, sometimes his email. So they're opening themselves up to that. And I don't want to quote any number, but I know the number is very high, that most of them end up working with a realtor anyways at the end, either because they couldn't do it or because one brought a buyer. And so there's a lot of reasons not to. Generally, we see them net less than even if they had to pay us to do it, because they'll sit on the market longer. They get much less market exposure. They don't get on realtor.com. They don't get on I don't think they get on any of the real estate websites because they don't have access to the MLS, which feeds to realtor.com, Zillow, Trulia. There's a lot of real estate websites that only get their data from the MLS, and the MLS is only for realtors. It's our coveted system. That's where we keep private stuff. I mean, there's a reason it's private and not a publicly used system. So they lose all that market exposure. And then even our friends at Zillow we do a tremendous amount of business with Zillow. I mean, to the tune of, I don't even want to say numbers. It's not embarrassing, but we invest a lot in Zillow annually to have the technology that they have. And they are not giving for sale by owners. I don't want to say that they're not helping them, but they're not. I mean, if you go on Zillow right now and look at houses and you don't know that there's a way to see for sale by owners, you won't see any of them. It's like they sort of hide them. And again, that's the only website they even really get on by default, but they have to put it there themselves. Like when we put stuff in the MLS, it just goes there into like a million other national places. Whereas most people are not going on for sale by owner websites looking for houses. Sure. They're going on the easy one,
right?
Zillow, realtor.com, where hand feeds them everything they want. Not to mention they don't have, I mean, buying and selling a house, there's a ton of legalities that go into it, and liability, huge liability for the seller and the buyer. If the seller doesn't disclose things, liability, they can get sued. If the buyer doesn't perform the contract, they can get sued. If the seller doesn't perform the contract, they can get sued. There's a reason that real estate attorneys exist and that there's a lot of them. It's not uncommon to make mistakes. We're trained. And I actually have legal counsel through Berkshire Hathaway. Wonderful gentleman named Scott Vogt up in Omaha. He's licensed as well, but he's, worked for a very large law firm in Lincoln and then went on to become counsel for home services and for Berkshire. I can call him literally 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. He answers his cell phone and I can say, hey, I've got this issue where if you're a FSBO, who are you going to call? You're trying to save money, right? So you're going to go hire an attorney to ask them questions and the bills start adding up and then you still don't sell it and then you still end up back in a spot. So not that it's not feasible to sell by owner, but there's a lot of things that come with the fees that we charge that make it easier. Plus you can say, here's what I want done. And essentially if it's vacant house, walk away and know that we're taking care of it and not worry about it not selling.
Yeah, I mean, there's people out there that are curious if they can do it by themselves. I mean, sometimes they probably succeed. I think you said it's probably uncommon though, in terms of, hey, I'm going to do without a realtor. And first of all, I would assume it's not very smooth in that process, no matter what, if they do sell it without a realtor.
Well, you know,
Typically.
if you want to see cell phone pictures of a house and have a difficult time even knowing that's for sale, unless you happen to drive by it and be like, oh, there's a for sale by owner sign in that yard. That's sort of what goes with the territory. It's like doing any type of, I mean, it's almost the same as going to court. Like, would you go without a professional because you think you know what you're doing? Probably not. But people have the misconception that it's easy. And that's the thing. It's not easy. You've known me a long time. You know how hard I work. Like
You work very hard.
It's a very difficult job. It has long hours. You know, Sunday when everybody else is at church and, you know, enjoying time with their families or sitting in open houses. And Sundays are our Mondays. We show a lot of houses on Sunday. We show a lot of houses on Saturdays. People generally aren't at work. That's when they're free. Yep. Same with the evenings. When a lot of these people, whether you're FSBO or not, want to be relaxing, we're on the clock. They're not. So, you know, if somebody wants to try to take that responsibility, I don't blame them for trying necessarily. But, you know, I've gotten calls from a lot of FSBOs, and I've called a lot of FSBOs and got their listings over the years, and just heard them, you know, like, I can't even do this anymore. Like, just take over it. And for us, it's easy. We have it kind of down to a science, but yeah. So that's my take on FSBOs. I will say this. When I am first starting off with buyers, I encourage them. I teach them how to look at the FSBOs so we can go look at them knowing that there's a better chance that we will have an upper hand in the situation than if we're dealing with an agent.
If you're just tuning in, FSBO, for sale by owners, as is the acronym for that you're going by.
FSBO.
FSBO, says Ben Bleicher.
Yeah.
That's some real estate lingo right there. Realtor lingo. You are listening. We are live. We're in between the holidays, between Thanksgiving and Christmas. We're doing our weekly edition of Get Real with Ben Bleicher, a professional realty group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services Ambassador Real Estate. You can call his team at 402-HOMES for you or visit prg-ne.com. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back with more with Ben Bleicher on Get Real on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, how to achieve fitness goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
So what's this new concept happening at 1040 O Street? There's 93.7 The Ticket, there's The Mill Coffee and Tea, and there's Grandma's Bake Shop and Beatrice Bakery? Well, yeah, it's all of those things. It's a place for the community to hang out, grab a drink and a bite, and just chill, or work, or meet, or chat, or whatever you want to do. 93.7 The Ticket, The Mill Coffee and Tea, Grandma's Bake Shop and Beatrice Bakery, all together at 1040 O Street.
From across the state who serve their communities in outstanding ways. We hope you'll join us this year at the Step Forward Awards Luncheon on October 27th in Omaha. Help us thank volunteers with a celebration to remember. To register, visit serve.nebraska.gov and click Register Now. We hope to see you there. Paid for by Serve Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them?
By their clothes,
their age,
the way they speak. Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Bank Strong, and the Ad Council.
Getting experience to jumpstart a meaningful career can be difficult, and education can cost a fortune. Luckily, AmeriCorps can be the solution. With AmeriCorps, you'll earn a stipend and education award while helping people. Plus, you'll gain professional skills and make connections to help you build your career. If you're ready to start a career you can be proud of, visit serve.nebraska.gov/service to find a program for you. Paid for by Serve Nebraska, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
My early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take,
but it gave my mom and me more time to plan together.
Talk to your family about seeing a doctor. Go to alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay, playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza. The big one. All the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend.
There's no better way to spark a child's imagination than to get lost in the adventure of a good book. I'm Jenny Benson, president of NSEA. Working together, parents and teachers can help every child succeed. You can help by reading to your child and let your child read to you. Encourage reading in your home and make it a priority. Make reading fun and a time that you and your child look forward to spending together.
Sponsored by the Nebraska State Education Association, aired by the Nebraska Broadcasters Association on this station.
Hi, this is Pastor Tom. Did you know there's a place kids can seek out help when they're away from home and something goes wrong? They find themselves in a difficult spot or even a dangerous situation. Maybe another child is bullying them or a stranger is following them. Perhaps on a date and things just go bad. In Lincoln, here's where they can find help. It's called Safe Place. Safe Place is a national program for children taking place in thousands of cities across the United States. The People Seeding Mission is sponsoring this program in our community and has set up a number of businesses, fire stations, schools, and nonprofits around the city to become safe locations where kids can seek out help. They just need to look for the big yellow sign that says Safe Place on it. Then go inside and ask for help. We will be quickly connected to them and ensure they make it back home or to whatever resources are needed. If you'd like to find out more about Safe Place and ways in which you can get involved, just go to pcmlincoln.org. Remember, when we all do a little, we change a lot.
Finally, a good reason to have a smart house. Just say, Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket, and we'll magically start playing. How's it work? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions. On the Block with Strick and Austin.
You only allow 13 points to Maryland, who's averaging 30. You allow fewer than 400 total yards to an offense that blows past that. Great, but I still am left feeling, what if? Is there one more play, one more drive in this defense?
It's tough for me to put the whole onus, and I know you're not, but to put that onus on them.
Weekdays from 2 to 4 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, we are back here on Get Real with Ben Bleicher, a professional realty group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Ambassador Real Estate. I'm Jake Sorensen alongside. Appreciate you guys. You can always call or text the show 402-464-5685. Ben, what's your email address? People want to ask questions that way also.
You can email me direct at ben.bleicher. It's at the top of the screen, Bleicher. So Ben.Bleicher at prg-ne.com. Ben.Bleicher at prg-ne.com. And
visit the website, again, prg-ne.com in general. And the phone number to call Ben and the squad, 402-HOMES for you. Okay, we were talking in the first segment about a variety of things. We ended with talking about FSBO, for sale by owners. It's some lingo for the real estate community that I didn't know that was a term, but that's why I'm on the show. I learned some things also and asked questions to Ben. Well, we were talking during the break about homes in Lincoln in general. And you mentioned, Ben, a good point. This is, Boston, New York City. Those were cities that were built way before Lincoln. They've got a lot of older homes. But I'm curious, the buying philosophy of somebody in Lincoln, of buying something in an older area, like let's say the Country Club area, Lincoln, versus a new development. What's the process in terms of even listing home values there and the buying process for people too?
Well, we can go a couple of directions on this. So there's three eras of housing that I would focus on the most. Is you have mid-century, so turn of the century. You don't see very much 1800 stuff. There's some in Lincoln, but not very much because they're farmhouses and they're spread out like all over the place because they're on farms, big farms. But most of the stuff that's older that we see is 1900 to, I'd say, mid 1930s. Once you got to the 40s, 50s, 60s, past 60 or 70, you rarely saw block foundations. You've seen them. They're cinder blocks. Now they're poured. they're poured now. They started pouring them back then. You still see cinder block going into probably the 80s and maybe early 90s. But that was just someone saying, I don't want to spend the money for a poured foundation. I would rather have the cheaper, not as good version, which is a cinder block foundation. But that is the biggest issue for me, and we'll dive into that. But so that you have, I would say, pre-1940, then mid-century, 1940 to roughly 1985-ish. I know it's a big chunk, but that's what I would consider mid-century. And then you have that and newer, which is a more modern house. In a lot of ways, the way they framed them, the way that they did the foundations, just a sturdier house. But we price these all the same. It doesn't matter what era it was built in. It really doesn't matter what area of town. It doesn't change our tactic as to how we would price them. It certainly changes our attitude towards prepping a house because older houses tend to have more issues for obvious reasons. I don't really have to dig into that. Older houses have older windows. The materials themselves are older, and the older anything gets, the more it deteriorates. Just the way things are, you know. I don't think there's anything wrong with buying anything old, mid-century, brand new. There's benefits, and I think you and I talked a little bit about getting into the details of that. So we'll sort of caveat into that. There's only a few areas of town that have what I would call older houses. You have the country club / Sheridan area. You've got some areas near East Campus and Wesleyan. We have this area called Professor's Row that's really neat, a bunch of really cool houses. And that would be south of Holdridge, between roughly, I don't know, you could go west of 33rd, but the really neat areas like 33rd to 48th. You've got some really, really Sheridan-esque style houses in there. Piedmont's got a few older houses. And then near south. And near south sort of blends in with country club / Sheridan. Not really, there's a dividing line probably right at South Street. But that is the only place you really, really see any concentration of older houses. So when the city began to grow, they were growing in those areas, obviously. Nothing wrong with buying an old house. You just have to know what you're getting into. You know, if you walk into one where everything's been replaced and it's been modernized, that's a totally different story. But the likelihood that I walk into a house that was built before 1940 or 50 and don't find some sort of issue with the foundation, not super likely. And it's not a problem. You can fix those things, but they're expensive, and you hope that by the time you buy it, it's either been done or you factor it into the price. And there's plenty of, I've walked into a few that were built like castles and didn't have much movement, but I've also walked into a bunch where there's walls like this, and you know, it's expensive, and it doesn't make the house worth any more money because it's a maintenance problem.
I would think, though, also with the benefit of an older house like that, again, it might have foundation issues, might need updates, is the fact that the property itself is so established, and it's, think about even like the landscaping. You know, you got full grown trees. Like it's not, the house is one thing, it's the whole foundation, the whole area, though, that is the benefit to having an older home like that.
Oh, absolutely. I love old houses. If I had more time and didn't work 8 hours a week, I would live somewhere on or nearby Sheridan Boulevard. The style and the way they were built, very sturdy. And I mentioned the foundations having issues. It doesn't necessarily mean the house is built bad. It's just the way they built foundations. And over time, things erode and age and things like that. And the way they did them back then was not as good as they do them now. In some ways not. And we'll get into that when we talk about new construction.
Yeah.
But old houses are great. You just have to know that you're walking in and should make some level of improvement as you own it. And you may not do everything. It may be the next guy that does some things and the guy before you that did some things. But, 100-year-old windows are not great.
No, understandably so, Ben.
The R value is not awesome, so you're spending way more money on your utilities. A lot of them are built with lath and plaster. So as they deteriorate and start to, go bad, a lot of these people are faced with the decision, do I want to find someone, if I even can, that does lath and plaster repair, or do I rip it down and put drywall up, which is the modern version of lath and plaster? All those things are super expensive, and I can't say definitively that if you walked into a house and replaced every wall with drywall, that it would make it worth a dime more. And if you're going to go do that, do you tackle the electrical that's 100 years old and go and get old plumbing lines out? You know, again, you just have to walk in knowing they're an investment, but a lot of times they're worth it. You know, if you have the money, I wouldn't recommend it for a first-time buyer who's strapped for cash, for sure. But someone who wants a house that has been loved and they can love it and do things to it and enjoys that kind of stuff, great. You know, I plenty of people who can afford it, who are friends of mine who are doctors or whatever profession they have, that choose to live in these old houses. They could afford a couple $1 million modern house, but they want to live in that neighborhood because of the charm and because of the maturity of the trees around there. And they may want to be close to the country club or something. Who knows? Good reasoning to live there. Nothing against it. It's just, we always warn people of not the hazards, but the what ifs that can come with owning a house that's 100 years old or better. I know the family that owns the Miller and Payne house, which is probably one of the largest houses in near South. I think it's over 10,000 square feet. And you wouldn't believe the stories that it used to have a boiler that was as large as the room we're in right now, maybe larger, that they at one point had to get out of it.
Wow.
Again, these things don't make it worth any more. just
cool
that they wanted to update the plumbing, so they had. So it's just interesting things like that come up with old houses. Now, mid-century was a revolution. I mean, they started doing things very differently. I feel like if I had to say an era of house that was the best built, I'd buy one that was built between 1950 and probably 1970. There's still carpenters swinging hammers. The walls weren't prefabricated and brought on site. You know, there was a lot of craftsmanship that still went into it, but they had better technology and they started doing poured foundations. Just things were really good. I mean, you drive through Piedmont and some of these neighborhoods that are older, but not as old as like Sheridan. And some of these houses are just spectacular. I mean, they're so well built and you can walk into them. I've sold a few in like Piedmont that were 70 years old and hadn't been renovated in 50 years, but they were pristine. And it wasn't just because people took care of them, it's because they were built well and they were strong. Love mid-century. A lot of ranches were built in the middle of the 20th century. I'm a big fan. You see a lot of them over by Pirtle, a lot of them in the neighborhood you live in. Like there's a lot of stuff that was built between 50 and 70 in there. Mostly in the neighborhood you live in was probably because are you between A and South or A and O? Okay, so you've got Lincolnshire in there, which you got a little bit older stuff.
Yeah, there's some older houses over there.
Yeah, but the majority of the Trentwood side was built between probably 1960 and majority like 1980, I would guess. And then Lincolnshire side, you probably find some stuff that was late 60s, late 50s, maybe. So, so again, we're just kind of talking about different styles of houses and the goods and bads. New construction, let's just dive into it. New construction is great. You get exactly what you want, assuming you have the budget for it. You're getting a brand new house. Everything that's in it is new. Your appliances, your HVAC, your windows, the things that are expensive and you don't want to have to replace. You're the first owner, so you don't have to worry about that for a long time. There's probably a builder's warranty, and there's probably a warranty on the HVAC. Even your refrigerator that you buy is probably going to be under warranty for quite some time. Things are built differently now. There's a lot of things prefabricated that I feel like are not quite as sturdy as stuff. And the cost to do masonry work seems to have gone up like a ton. So if you want a house that isn't sided and all brick, you're in a different price point than most people want to be in, especially for like a first-time buyer, which is why you don't see almost anything anymore that's all brick or all limestone. Or
Sad,
something.
really sad.
It is sad. No, I love the architecture. It all
or stone.
Right, or any type of solid surface that does not generally deplete at any point. right? I mean, there's castles made of limestone that are like thousands of years old, and they, again, have
Sturdy as heck.
old structure issues, but they're still here.
Yep.
Or if you built a
thing's still
house
around.
out of sticks and vinyl siding and let it sit for 100 years, the likelihood that vinyl is still intact and the house is still standing is not nearly as good. So, but that's an issue that also branches off into the way that everything is made now is to be replaced, right? You know, I've seen Lennox HVAC systems in houses that were 60 years old and still producing heat, like a champ.
That's amazing.
Right. Whereas now you see a more modern HVAC system that's over 15 years old and you're like, crap, this thing's about to need to be replaced. So
let's pause here. We'll take a quick break. We'll dive back in to finish things off back in the new construction. I've got a question about new construction specifically I want to address when we come back. Again, this is Get Real with Ben Bleicher, Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Ambassador Real Estate. I'm Jake Sorensen. He's Ben Bleicher. We're back with one more segment here on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Start your Sundays off right with Jeff and Nicole Essink on Fitness Fanatics. Jeff and Nicole discuss health and wellness, how to achieve fitness goals, and more through the life of gym owners and gym goers. It's Fitness Fanatics from 9 to 11 a.m. on Sundays on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
So what's this new concept happening at 1040 O Street? There's 93.7 The Ticket, there's the Mill Coffee and Tea, and there's Grandma's Bake Shop and Beatrice Bakery? Well, yeah, it's all of those things. It's a place for the community to hang out, grab a drink and a bite, and just chill, or work, or meet, or chat, or whatever you want to do. 93.7 The Ticket, the Mill Coffee and Tea, Grandma's Bake Shop and Beatrice Bakery, all together at 1040 O Street.
From across the state who serve their communities in outstanding ways. We hope you'll join us this year at the Step Forward Awards Luncheon on October 27th in Omaha. Help us thank volunteers with a celebration to remember. To register, visit serve.nebraska.gov and click Register Now. We hope to see you there. Paid for by Serve Nebraska. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them?
By their clothes,
Their age?
the way they speak. Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Getting experience to jumpstart a meaningful career can be difficult, and education can cost a fortune. Luckily, AmeriCorps can be the solution. With AmeriCorps, you'll earn a stipend and education award while helping people. Plus, you'll gain professional skills and make connections to help you build your career. If you're ready to start a career you can be proud of, visit serve.nebraska.gov/service to find a program for you. Paid for by Serve Nebraska, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
My early Alzheimer's diagnosis was hard to take.
But it gave my mom and me more time to plan together.
Talk to your family about seeing a doctor. Go to alz.org/time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket.
Okay. Playing 93.7 The Ticket.
Alexa, turn down the lights.
Dimming the lights.
Alexa, order a pizza. The big one. All the toppings.
Are you sure that's a good idea?
Alexa.
That's a lot of pizza for just one man.
Alexa, just do it. Stop judging me, just do it.
As you wish.
Thanks, Alexa. You're my best friend.
There's no better way to spark a child's imagination than to get lost in the adventure of a good book. I'm Jenny Benson, president of NSEA. Working together, parents and teachers can help every child succeed. You can help by reading to your child and let your child read to you. Encourage reading in your home and make it a priority. Make reading fun and a time that you and your child look forward to spending together.
Sponsored by the Nebraska State Education Association, aired by the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Hi, this is Pastor Tom. Did you know there's a place kids can seek out help when they're away from home and something goes wrong? They find themselves in a difficult spot or even a dangerous situation. Maybe another child is bullying them or a stranger is following them. Perhaps on a date and things just go bad. In Lincoln, here's where they can find help. It's called Safe Place. Safe Place is a national program for children taking place in thousands of cities across the United States. The People Seating mission is sponsoring this program in our community and has set up a number of businesses, fire stations, schools, and nonprofits around the city to become safe locations where kids can seek out help. They just need to look for the big yellow sign that says Safe Place on it. Then go inside and ask for help. We will be quickly connected to them and ensure they make it back home or to whatever resources are needed. If you'd like to find out more about Safe Place and ways in which you can get involved, just go to pcmlincoln.org. Remember, when we all do a little, we change a lot.
Finally, a good reason to have a smart house. Just say, Alexa, play 93.7 The Ticket, and we'll magically start playing. How's it work? Nobody knows. Don't ask questions. On the Block with Strick and Austin.
You only allow 13 points to Maryland, who's averaging 30. You allow fewer than 400 total yards to an offense that blows past that. Great, but I still am left feeling, what if? Is there one more play, one more drive in this defense?
It's tough for me to put the whole onus, and I know you're not, but to put that onus on them.
Weekdays from 2 to 4 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
One final segment of Get Real with Ben Bleicher from Professional Realty Group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Ambassador Real Estate. He is Ben Bleicher. I'm Jake Sorensen. It's been a fun show. Thanks again for watching. And if you have any questions for further shows, you can always call or text 402-464-5685. You can call Ben and his team directly at 402-HOMES-4U. The number 4 and U, the letter home, 402 Homes for You, or go to prg-ne.com. All right, so want to get back into new construction, and I had a question for you. I mentioned during the break, but I mentioned, like, my sister lives in Colorado. They're in an area that's blowing up in terms of new homes being built left and right. It's just crazy, the amount of homes being built. And one trend I see is unfinished basements when I go to places. I guess tell me why, as someone who's never purchased a new home like that, why that is a trend, and if that is something that's going to continue going forward.
I'm going to caveat into a different direction halfway through this, but I see this in Kansas City when I go down there and judge the parade of homes all the time. You have these big, beautiful 2-story houses and sometimes ranches, but usually 1.5 or 2 stories, no finished basement. It's a budgetary thing, but it also leaves room for equity. So while I think that it's not always a good idea to not let the builder just finish while they're already there working on it, because I think it's a little bit cheaper, if you're going to have drywallers there and all that stuff, and they're already there doing the rest of the house, if you can afford it, finish it right then. It'll be cheaper than you doing it on your own. Yep. And generally the builder can get it done probably cheaper than you can. Right. That's what they do for a living. Let them do their job. But I do see the trend a lot, not just in Colorado, like everywhere. It's not huge in Lincoln. I haven't seen much of it. But it's an affordability thing. They want to sell you this house, and then you have the opportunity later to finish it and make it either more space for you or worth more money because it's now finished. And you can dump your equity into adding finished square footage rather than having to remodel stuff. And something else we talked about that I'm going to dig into on that is enjoying your house. And we'll end this segment talking about this because I could talk about it for a whole entire hour, probably longer. Make sure your house is the way you want it. And not that you can't be, conservative a little bit and not just throw all sorts of money at your house. When you're building a house, if you're going to go to the effort of doing it, make it the way you want it. Don't go cheap on things that are going to make you enjoy it less, just so in 10 years down the road, you can do it in preparation to sell it. I see that far too much, and it saddens me, honestly, that I'll have clients that'll call me 6 months before they want to sell and say, okay, it's the worst when they call me and they've already done it. Don't ask me what to do, but they'll say, hey, we just got done remodeling our kitchen. We're getting ready to do the master bathroom. We're going to finish the basement, and then we want you to list it for us. And it's like, oh, poor you. Because then I swear, like 9 times out of 10, they get done with it and they either regret selling it or stay, which is fine, because that's what they should do, is make their houses how they want them, and then live there and enjoy them. They'll either not want to sell or regret selling, and then have remorse, or they'll dump a bunch of money into it and they won't get it back because they did the wrong stuff. I'll walk in and I'll see turquoise cabinets in the kitchen or something. They're like, we saw in this magazine that this was trendy. And, you know, you don't want to make trendy
What
decisions.
magazine was that?
There's lots of them, Jay. There's too many of them. There's too many TV shows about it too. So, you know, as you live in your house, improve it. You know, and not everything's going to make you money, but again, be smart when you buy it. If you know the windows are bad or old, or if you know, negotiate these things when you buy it, and don't deal with it later where you're not going to make any money off the investment. But then enjoy your house as you live in it and make it the way you want it. Don't fix it so someone else can buy it and you can break even. That is the worst. There's home equity loans. There's all sorts of different ways to finance these. You don't need to pay cash. That's the safest way to do it, is save up the money and do it. But historically, people are not good at saving money, especially large chunks of money. And redoing a kitchen in today's age is generally not less than 10 grand. And depending on the side of the house, it could be 50. I mean, I think we spent 30 or 40 on our last house that we lived in.
Yep. Ours was expensive too. Our kitchen.
Yeah,
It was
they're pricey. Things aren't getting cheaper, and we're not,
kitchen,
and our wages aren't going up at the rate to make us rich enough to just pay cash for everything. But take loans out, and call your realtor. Call me. Call whoever you work with, and find out what are good things to do to add equity. I can tell you right now, kitchens and bathrooms add the most of anything you can do. Period. Adding fences, replacing windows, things like that, you're generally not ever going to get back dollar for dollar what you put into it. So again, be smart about those things. You can also get windows repaired rather than replaced. You and I sort of talked about that.
Yeah,
I've had clients, I have one right now who potentially could have, if he had not talked to me, gone and spent thousands of dollars redoing these windows. I hooked him up with a guy that replaces just the glass. We got it done for like hundreds of dollars. A few that had broken seals on them. It was easy peasy. Anyways, we'll end this eventually on enjoy your house. Don't renovate it to sell it. Please just sell it the way it is and don't bother. Or call me or someone you trust in real estate to give you pointers on what are good renovations. Not necessarily what's trendy. Trendy is not always safe because trends go away. And just what's smart. I mean, I've seen so many situations where there's like a 5-bedroom house and somebody doesn't have a primary suite. And they'll, you know, do things that are, I would just say, just take away a bedroom, figure out a way to just get rid of one of the bedrooms on the main floor and make it a primary, because it's not going to hurt the value to go from a 5 to a 4. Now, it would hurt to go from a 4 to a 3. But there's just certain rules with how you evaluate things, where if they just consult someone like me, and I don't charge anything to answer questions like this, they can make much better decisions. Not to mention, I know like every contractor in town, and I can give somebody like multiple recommendations for any line of work.
Ben knows everyone. You heard it here from me
Not
first.
everyone,
You heard it here
but
first. Ben
enough
knows everybody
people.
in Lincoln that you need to know. So before we get out of here, Ben, again, how do people reach out to you if they're trying to get a hold of you and ask any questions or about their home, maybe buying or selling?
Any time of the day, literally, they can call 402 Homes for You and get myself, my assistant, one of my agents. It's a phone line where you call it. You can say, I want to connect with the buyer's agent, seller's agent. If you want to connect with one of my staff that's in the office, there's a button for that too. You can call me directly, 402-419-6309 if you want. Text me, call me whenever. I'm kind of the same as my phone line. I don't really have hours. Or go to our website, www.prg-ne.com. You can search every listing in Lincoln and Omaha on there. You can reach out to us. You can see stuff about our team and the guys and gals on it. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you for listening. If you were watching on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, again, please comment. You can comment on this anytime. This will be up for a long time on YouTube, forever, as long as we want it to be. So you can comment there. We can read those comments and address those for previous or upcoming shows that we have, and we encourage that. So You got Ben's email address. One more time, your email.
ben.bleicher@prg-ne.com.
If that's too much for you to remember, you can just go info@theticketfm.com. We'll always hook up Ben with the questions and prepare for the show. Ben, it's been fun. Appreciate it. We'll do it again next week.
Yes, sir.
He is Ben Bleicher, a professional realty group of Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Ambassador Real Estate. This has been Get Real. We'll see you next week. Have a good one.